Welcome to the Mother Daze podcast. I am your host, Sarah Wright Olsen.
And I'm Teresa Palmer. Hey, guys.
Hi. If I sound like a little bit different today, it's because I just had strep throat and I have a little bit of a raspy.
I thought you were going to say because I just had sex. I was like, no.
But I did it. And no.
I just had the strep throat.
No.
Way less sexy.
No, but like this is like that that's that moment when you're like, ooh, should I like sing a little bit more or like record an album?
Yeah, sultry. Oh my God. What if I did the whole podcast like that?
Oh my God, please don't do that. I can't. I'm already sweating. I'm already sweating.
God. It's because I said the word sex.
I know. Now I'm like,
help. I'm embarrassed still.
Embarrassment.
I love doing that to Sarah. I am way more crass than you. I am so crass.
I know.
I say the most outlandish things.
You do.
And you're a much better good girl than me. But I love seeing her swear.
We could definitely cut this out of the podcast if you don't want to use it. But
so
I mean this thing I'm about to say.
The
upcoming thing. But this weekend.
This is so funny. Yeah, tell this.
We were talking about something. We were talking about this company, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I was just talking to this guy, and he like, God, he just loves you so much. He was like, Teresa, she's been so good to us. And I was telling this to Teresa at a birthday party, and we're around a whole bunch of women, and I was like, the guy was like, yeah, Teresa, she's been so good to us. And she goes, yeah, oh yeah, I gave his brother a blowjob.
And it was his first ever. Look, I was a rebellious teen, you guys. Not that I was rebellious.
No, I was laughing so hard though because this guy was like so sweet, and he was just like, he was just like, oh yeah, Teresa, she's been so good to us, and she goes, yeah, I gave his brother a blowjob, and I was like, oh my God. I did not think that's what he was talking about.
T-palms back in her Ralphie days.
My God. Well, we've been having some really fun
by the way, I'm just thinking about my auntie listening to this being like, what do you mean? Like all my elderly relatives being like, oh, that perfect angel Teresa never does anything like that. Doesn't put willies in mouths. She doesn't do things like that.
Well, I was at a doctor's office today, and this doctor said something so weird.
What?
And yeah, he said something so weird. So I'm sitting here with my 11-year-old son.
Boy.
I had just turned 11, and I'll tell you why we were at the doctor's office in a minute, but we're listening to him talk outside of the office, and then he comes in and he sits down and he's talking with us, and he was like telling us that he has this new baby. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cute. And I was like, what did you name him? And he was like, I wanted to name him this name. I'm not going to say what it is because I really don't want to out him and embarrass him. But not that he listens to our show, by the way.
But maybe he does.
Just in case. I don't know. He's like, I wanted to name him this name. But then somebody said, oh, did you say cock? And and he goes, so I decided not to name him that. And I was like, he just said cock in front of my 11-year-old. By the way, maybe in some countries that's like...
Isn't it a rooster?
I mean, yes.
Is it cock a rooster? I need to chat GPT this.
Immediately my brain goes to the reason why he said that is because he just didn't want someone to think that he was saying cock instead of whatever the name was to his son. He definitely didn't mean rooster. He meant the other. Am I right? Like,
oh my God.
know.
Well, he meant penis. That's what he meant.
I immediately turned.
Yes, it is rooster.
Red. I know.
Yes, cock is another term for rooster.
Cock-a-doodle-doo. Cock-a-doodle-doo.
Oh my God. Do you know that I actually had to chat GPT that? I was like, is that right? A rooster. Yes. More commonly used in British English.
So I turned bright red and started sweating in the office.
I love you so much.
Talking. And I was like, does he know what that means? And like, I don't know. What was his reaction? Did he do anything? What? Yeah. He laughed. he laughed.
He knows.
Then the guy didn't laugh, and the guy was just like, right. And then there was like a medical student in there with him, and the medical student's face like didn't really change. He just sort of like gave me a look, and I gave him a look, and I was just like pouring sweat under the arms and everything. And I was moving on. Okay.
Oh my God. It's so funny. Poet said to me, she was like, so if dick is penis, then why is dick a swear word? And I was like,
oh my gosh.
I guess it is. And then Bodhi was like, dick isn't really a swear word. And I was like, is it? Hey. Like, I need to go out to my harsher mum community to be like, do we consider dick? If you're like, you're such a dick, is that, I think it's an unkind thing to say, of course, but is it a swear word? But cock feels more arresting to me. Like, you're such a cockhead. That feels more intense than dick. Totally. But since it all means the same thing, why is one more of a swear word than the other? Don't know.
Okay, so I think the answer would, from our family, maybe it's different for every family, is kind of unbecoming. Right? Like saying it sounds, it's like, are you trying to get a rise? Like, what are you trying to do with it? Right? It's like, you want something to sound more intense. It's like when you walk through the mall and you hear a group of middle schoolers talking, every single word out of their mouth is the F word. Not all middle schoolers, but a lot of them that I've ran into, not at the mall, but just in town. And you're like, it's F this and F that. And, and why it's like eyes are huge. And we're walking by. Yeah. And so I feel like it's like unbecoming. Like, it doesn't look good on you to walk around saying.
And what about idiot? How do we feel about idiot? Because I've heard my kids call each other like, oh, you're being an idiot, or don't be an idiot.
I tell them that I don't think that is a kind way to communicate with your sibling. My kids don't say that because I won't use that word.
So what does what are some words your kids will use to like call each other? Because mine have definitely said idiot.
They don't really call each other names.
They're perfect, guys.
No, they're not. But they don't. That's not true. But we do have a thing about. Okay, they fight a lot all the time. But I have this thing from a while ago where I've always talked about name calling and how it's not okay. I'm trying to think if they ever, they're not even close to perfect. They definitely fight all the time, but I don't.
Mine will call each other like things like
trying
idiot.
To think. They will say idiot.
You're being so annoying.
Okay, that's one. That's one my kids will use. Yes, annoying. It's, this is aggravating, frustrating. They use like what the terminology of like this situation versus they will say you're so annoying though. You're being annoying. Yeah. Or you're trying to annoy me. That's something
I think
that
we probably haven't really come down on our kids. I feel like I haven't come down on them enough with that. I'll hear that and I'll just be like, Bodhi, stop being cruel. Or Bodhi, like, that's not a nice thing to say. But I'm not like, I don't have I feel like you and Eric have really very distinctly clear boundaries with your kids. I feel like Mark and we can be a bit lax sometimes. And then if something will happen with their behavior that we're like, what? Then I always turn the finger back on myself and I'm like, oh my God, it's because I didn't set the boundary clearly enough where they know that that's unacceptable. We can be a bit, I think it's just my personality, like whatever, blah, blah, blah. And we're not super strict. But then sometimes I'll be like really thrown by behavior and then be like, why did you say that to him? That's not kind. Like they're not words that we use. I just have to be a bit more on top of it. And Mark will hear something get triggered and yell at them. He'll get angry.
He'll raise his voice. I know. I have raised my voice. I raised my voice recently with one of my kids, and it's not my go-to, but I had asked this child, because I don't want to call the child out. I asked them multiple times to,
I think I know which one,
stop doing what it is that they're doing, to put down what they had in their hand, because we were supposed to be working on this like schoolwork thing. And so, I was like, you have to put that down. And then this child was like not listening and then got mad and then started yelling and then continued and then got even more mad that we're about to do school, then started breaking some pencils and other things that were inside of this like art bag, and then wouldn't stop. And then I literally grabbed the art bag and yelled. I was like, stop, because I couldn't get them to snap out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so I was like, I raised my voice and I instantly inside felt like, oh, I hate when I have to do that. Like I felt so bad inside.
But it probably snapped that kid out of it. Where they're like, oh my God.
Immediately snapped out of it.
And then probably self-regulate.
Looked at me and then was like, not self-regulate. Got even more mad. But at least at that point, I got that person to stop breaking the pencils. And so then I like grabbed the bag, and then we had time in the thinking chair, a loss of
yes, I forget that you do that. The thinking chair. I remember that from years ago.
Because then when they're in the thinking chair, and maybe this is a dumb concept, but while they're in the thinking chair, then we kind of like the body's calming down, and a couple minutes into it, the body's really getting to a calm place. And then we start talking about the situation. Once we get to a place where we're having a coherent conversation, it's like, okay, good. You're all done with your time. Like it was supposed to be 10 minutes, but now that we've had this amazing conversation, let's be done. And so then it's like, that's kind of our way to calm it all down. Cause otherwise it's like running off to the bedroom, screaming, whatever. It's like, it really does help if you have the thinking chair. Me, I have a kid who, kind of needs that some, but anyway, so yeah, I do raise my voice.
Another thing that Eric does is that a good decision or a bad decision? He says that, and he says it in a tone that makes the kid stop and be like, bad decision. Or have they ever been like, well, hear me out. This is why it was a good decision, because have they ever done that or not? Or does it make them be like, you're right, it was a bad decision?
No, it's sometimes there's a pushback, and I would say like, here's my reasoning behind. Sometimes we have to, it's that great thing that Jessica Alba said in her podcast about her therapist, where it was like, don't let the 13-year-old in your child like trigger the 13-year-old inside of you, and so there's moments when I hear that sometimes with like, one of my kids where, and I'm curious if this ever happens to you, Tez, because, if your child is acting petulant or bratty,
stubborn
or stubborn, you don't want to say you're being a brat or you're being petulant. Do you say this is bratty behavior? Like, do you ever say this is petulant behavior? Like, do you see like this behavior, the way that you're acting is very entitled. It's like, I demand this in this moment. And because this person had this, it is selfish.
You're acting selfish. This is a selfish choice.
You're a brat, which is what I probably would have been called as a child.
I definitely have said, though, you're selfish. I have said that before. You're selfish.
What's the response in that moment? Like, because I always say, this is selfish behavior, or this behavior is petulant.
I mainly say being selfish. Okay. Selfish is my go-to, because I have one kid in the family that's the theme that will come up. And what I really have tried to avoid, even though on the inside I think it, I will compare that child in my mind to another child where I'm like, oh, this is my unselfish child and this is my selfish child. In my head, I will come up with it, which I know is not healthy. And by the way, that's just such a black and white way of thinking about it. But in the moment, I'm like, oh, there's another one of those choices where they're just thinking about self. And so we always try and be like, this feels like selfish behavior. This feels like this choice is coming from a selfish place. And here's why. I don't want to call this one out. So I don't know how to say this in a way.
That's why I'm like,
I don't want to say this in a way where I could, but I definitely have one that's like headed in the direction, I'll say, of maybe being one that would be stubborn enough to be like, I don't care. That doesn't. I have a kid that I feel like I could take any privilege away or give any consequence, and they're like, give a shit. They don't care about any, like, we often will do things like, I will take away, let's say, yeah, well, they don't get that anymore anyway, but like their device experience, whether that's like playing Madam with Isaac or watching a group movie or whatever it is. I will take that away, and that's like a really big deal. Oh, recently it's been the Pokemon cards. So Pokemon cards has like infiltrated our family. All my kids are obsessed apart from Prairie. They're all obsessed. So it's like we're going to have to take a break from the Pokemon book. We're going to put the Pokemon book is going to take a break, and it's going to sit over here, and it's going to sit over here until tomorrow or whatever it is. So, but I'm always looking for ideas and like how to, because as your kids grow, their behaviors and their patterns and everything shifts and changes, and they're never in the same kind of place. So I'm always also trying to evolve with my discipline and my taking privileges away and
me too,
my boundaries and I'm always trying to ask people like, what do you do? What's working?
Yeah.
And you guys have always been very consistent with the thinking chair. Like I remember that back in Spain when we were on holiday, and you're like, the thinking chair. And I remember we tried it with Bodhi, but it didn't.
No, you tried it in the crib or something. I remember you all started laughing about it because he was like, you put him in thinking chair, but it was like in the crib.
I do remember we tried with him, and that like was not the thing that helped him. Oh. I remember what it was. This just came to me. It was time in. Do you remember time ins?
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. We learned that in Mommy and Me.
Yes,
yeah. We learned it in Mommy and Me.
And it's like where you go to a place with your child. I think this probably works more. Actually, maybe it would work at this age. I haven't tried it. Actually, I have tried it recently with Poet. I tried it with Poet just to talk about feelings and choices behind behavior. And this is, when that happens, like these are the feelings that came up for Mum. Like, what were you feeling right then? I actually had a conversation with her today because I've been noticing this like little dynamic shift between her and Bodhi. It's too hard for me to be like, pretend I can't say which child. It's not going to be anything that will bring shame or anything. So this is just something I've been dealing with, and probably other people with like multiple children like Sarah and I will deal with this too, like sibling dynamics. And Forrest and Poet have really similar imaginary play, and they play really well together. Poet and Prairie are the bestest friends in all the land. They play really well together. There is something about the Bodhi-Poet dynamic just recently. Literally, it has just shifted in the last 2 weeks. She's 5.5 and he's 10.5, where they're so similar to each other in lots of ways that they are pushing each other's buttons. And I know how to be with Poet and her way, but I think because Bodhi's just younger, he does not have a lot of patience with some of her bigger feelings, and he can slip into like an adulting role with her, and that really pisses her off. And so they have been at loggerheads in the last 2 weeks. And it'll be as little as he can just make a little comment, and she will really have a big feeling about that. Or she'll say something to him and it will really trigger him. So today I sat down with Poet and we just had a conversation for like 45 minutes, and I wanted to get to the bottom of like what's been going on with her and with Bodhi, and my suspicion is that Bodhi and Prairie have the most unbelievable relationship. He is obsessed with Prairie, and Prairie just idolizes Bodhi. And the two of them, they do this game where she's on the back, and And Bodhi tends to like talk about how gorgeous and beautiful and cute and how amazing she is. That I actually think that there is like a little part of Poet that feels like, does he love me as much as he loves her?
Aww.
Because she's seeing how close they are, and they've just gotten closer and closer and closer. Number 1 and number 4 child that we talked about today. And she was like, it's okay. I don't know. I mean, Bodhi just might have more fun with Prairie. And I was like, oh, buddy, do you know that's not my observation? My observation is like, think about all the times he wants to fold you in and how he thinks you're so brave. He always talks about how brave you are and how fun you are. You always make him laugh. And so today I told Bodhi this and I was like, oh, this is what I think is going on. And maybe we can make more of an effort to fold her in, or just be conscious that she's not just a little girl anymore. She's not just a little person who's not observing and feeling these feelings. Like she's growing up and she's noticing dynamics. And I'm a sensitive flower and she is a sensitive flower, and so is Bodhi. So today I had a little talk with Bodhi about it, and he was like, I'm on it. I'm totally on it. And I'll like fill you guys in down the track and I'll see if it's shifted. But Mark and I feel like having those conversations with your kids and just getting on such a real level with them, no matter if they're 5 or 11 or whatever, it's like such a good way of trying to get to the root cause of like shifts in behavior. Because there's always it's coming from somewhere. Like something has shifted, or maybe they're feeling left out, or there's always something. So the communication, and that's kind of the idea of the time in, is like instead of sending them away for a timeout, like shut the door, they're in the bedroom, whatever, sitting, like taking them away from whatever's triggering them in the environment, but taking them into their room and sitting with them on the bed and being like, let's talk about what just happened. Like from your perspective, how are you feeling? Anyway, that was a cool thing that happened today. And obviously we'll see how that affects behavior, but I don't know. It's always a flow, isn't it? It's always just having to be in flow with it.
I think I said this to you before, but I remember like us doing thinking chair, and it was sort of I must have come from the place of time in or something like that, because doing thinking chair is like, you know, we definitely have, you know, one kid who needs that time to calm the body down, because there just isn't any chance that you can have a conversation when they're seeing red, you know,
that's
like when they're in that place, like that you know, that like they're feeling like it's the emotions and reactions are so much bigger than what their body. And so they feel all of it. And then they're also like freaked out by that and angry, and like things are just really, really, really big. So sometimes it's better for them to sit. And even though they're mad about being there, it's like, you really do notice that they start focusing on like, how long have I been in here? Like, you know, it's like 30 seconds. How long is it now? You know, you're like a minute, and I'm like, okay, how's your body feeling? Calmer? Yes. Okay. So should we talk about that a little bit? And then it's like this great moment. But I remember that we were reading I think it was called Ada Twist Scientist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that
book.
And
she goes to the hall, and like she goes to the thinking chair, you know, and then as she's in the thinking chair, she starts working out all these problems on the wall, and they're all in crayon. And, you know, her mom and dad come in, and they're immediately like immediately upset by the fact that she just wrote all over the wall. But then they realize like that she like what she actually needed. Yeah. It was like work it all out. And so I loved the sort of underlying of that book, is that like it was a time in which she was working something out that she needed to work out. And it was also like gave her that time to kind of like, you know, regulate in the midst of sometimes in the moment when something, you know, happens.
Yeah.
And everybody's heated, because for me, like I can't really have those conversations either in the heated moment. Like it does trigger me when one of my kids gets hurt, or one's like being mean to the other, or there's constant fighting where they're like, you know, Esme said this to me, or Wyatt said this to me, or this happened. I'm like, you guys, have come to me 15 times this morning. Like, we have got to figure out how to play where we're not. Because it's so frustrating
and
to have the constant.
Do they play as a 3, or is it often like Wyatt and Winter will pair off, and then, you know, Esme?
They play as a 3 a lot. And then Wyatt and Esme sometimes will pair off to play like a more advanced Lego situation, but then Winter does want, you know, if she notices that that's happening, she's like, whoa, I want to play. And then she'll kind of come into it. And then sometimes they'll feel a little protective of their, like, you know, big Lego ships. Yeah. That they like don't want to get broken or whatever. But
well, Wyatt, that's like a big part of his, like, I remember growing up, he would engage with you guys like by building these incredible Lego pieces that were for kids a lot older than him. And he was able to figure it out. And I remember staying at your house once, and she was like, Sarah was like, the only thing is, like, I've put the important Lego things up. Like, and you know, Forrest is like that too. He's like taking it, he's following in Wyatt's footsteps with Lego. I think that is such a good,
it's very meditative,
activity.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, he's, when he does it, he's like so engaged, loves building, loves following the directions. Like, I definitely see that that's something that his brain is like really into, you know,
that's like he's the same.
Yeah.
But anyway, I love talking about that stuff because it's just like always shifting and changing. And maybe someone will comment on our post and be like, oh my God, I've just figured it out. Like, the best thing has been this.
Yes.
Yesterday in the car, we went to the beach with Sarah, and Poet and Prairie had really big 3 days, but Poet in particular had such a hard time at the beach. She would go in waves of like having fun and then not having fun. And I could tell she was just really tired. And Mark and I were both getting frustrated at her because we were trying to have conversations, and she was just like, so everything was like, she liked the feeling of the sand, and then she didn't like the feeling of the sand, and then she wanted her clothes off, and then she wanted her clothes on, and then she wanted a snack, and then she didn't want to share the snack with anyone. And I was like, okay, telltale signs, this girl is tired. And they'd been going to bed really late. We had 3 really late nights. We had 3 parties back to back. We had 1 day of shooting at our house, and they were there really late. And then we had the next day of a wrap party, and then we had the next day Prairie's party, and then the next day we had gone to the beach. So there was just a lot. Eventually I just held Poet in my arms, and I just rocked her, and she fell asleep in my arms at the worst time ever to have a nap. Both Winter and Prairie and Poet fell asleep so late at the beach.
Didn't go to bed, by the way, till like 9:45 because of falling asleep on the beach. But
sometimes they just sometimes they just need it. And I was like, oh, cool. So if I had, instead of just getting frustrated an hour earlier, the hard thing was both girls were tired and both wanted me and weren't interested in Mark. So I was like having to juggle between both needy girls. And then I got Prairie to sleep. There's really cute photos that we'll post when this comes out of everyone asleep, including the dogs. And then I finally got Poet to sleep, and I was like, oh, I just had to meet her need wherever the need was, and the need was being close. And instead of me trying to keep encouraging her to go out and play and just go and play, like realizing like that's not how she's going to have a fun time at the beach. She actually just has to have a reset and fall asleep on my chest. And then she'll wake up and she'll re-engage, which she did. And she ended up having a good day. So anyway.
It was so awesome. And we had both of our foster dogs at the beach, and they were so happy, and they slept the whole day together with
which little
was
sandy
really
noses, little blue eyes and sandy noses. We got really good photos.
I was like, how did we both end up with these foster babies that like found us? I know. These foster fur babies, which is so crazy.
Did I even talk talk about, I don't even know if I talked about that on the pod, but, Sarah had, so when we got back to LA, we were like, we wanted to foster a mama dog with puppies because we follow this, it's called Saving Urgent Shelter Pets. So if you're in Los Angeles or California, you should definitely follow them. They're so great. But a lot of these dogs only have like 5 days in the shelter. And so many mama dogs come in pregnant and then give birth. And the idea that this mama with all these newborns and she's breastfeeding and she's having this experience, it was heartbreaking to think that all of them get put to sleep, the mama and the babies, in these high kill shelters. They don't care that the babies are 3 days old and the mum is lactating and nursing them, and they just all get put to sleep, and it's like so devastating. And so when we got back to LA, we're like, right, that's what we're going to do. We're going to either do a dog or a cat with kittens, and we're going to save these animals and then use up, my Instagram to get them all adopted out. And then I met Wiley, and they were fostering in Idaho. And I was like, oh my God, that's so funny that we've both been thinking about doing this. So then Wiley, their dog that they foster failed in Idaho, they ended up bringing back to LA. And we had this great day at the beach with Wiley, and Bodhi was just in love with Wiley, just like cuddling him, and we were like, oh my God, what an amazing dog. And Bodhi was like, we're doing it. We're getting a mama dog. We're going to foster. And so I ended up going to this high kill shelter, and I went to get these other 2 dogs, but then I found out that they weren't good with kids. So I ended up getting those 2 dogs rescued, or helping to get them rescued, and they're now being fostered so they didn't die. And then I had scrolled back on this person's page, and I saw this beautiful dog with these light blue eyes, and this it said dog of the week, and he had won dog of the week at the shelter, but it only been there, he had been there for such a short period of time. He was a street dog, and he's like a mixture of a bunch of things. We don't know exactly what, but we think husky, maybe Australian shepherd, maybe border collie, not sure. But I rang up about him, and I was like, oh, it said that he was euthanized last Friday. So obviously he's no longer with us. But I just rang up the shelter to be like, it said he was a perfect gentleman and amazing with kids and amazing with dogs. And, I can't believe he got euthanized. And she was like, no, actually that dog's still here. Let me check. Okay, so Friday, 5 p.m., this Friday, 5 p.m. is a euthanasia date. He got an extra week. He was dog of the week. He got voted dog of the week here. So I was
come on.
Oh my God. So I didn't tell Mark. Did not freaking tell him because, guys, there is no chance in hell Mark was going to let me go and
he would have been like,
a random dog. No. We've had so many colorful adventures with the dogs of LA that we have had. And our dogs are back on the farm, our other dogs. And so the idea to him that while our dogs are on a farm and we're paying for them to live their best life, freedom, they can just run around without having to wear muzzles on walks and whatever, because we have 2 aggressive dogs. You've heard the story. Anyway, the idea that we would then foster another dog, which will end up costing us money if we keep this dog, he was like, there's no way. He'd put the kibosh on it. But the great thing is he's directing a movie about veganism right now. So it's like, I'm going to use this, and I'm going to be like, I had to rescue the animals because I'm one with the animals, and it only had 30 minutes until death. And so I ended up getting in the car with the 4 kids, didn't tell Mark, drove all the way an hour and a half.
Oh my God.
To the shelter, got there. He was FaceTiming us. As we arrived at the shelter, FaceTime. I quickly would be like, oh, I just canceled it. He would FaceTime again, canceled it. I was like, I just got to get the dog in the car, and then I can FaceTime him, because once I've adopted the dog, he's not going to make me send the dog back.
My God.
Bodhi was like, Dad's calling again. Dad's calling. I was like, write him back and say 10 minutes, say Mum's on an important phone call. And so he was texting him back, and I'm like, hurry up, get the dog. Get the dog. I know. And then we got the dog, and he stunk so bad, the most
God. Winter would have been throwing up.
Would have been throwing up. Winter at Prairie's birthday party, walked up to the goat and was like, oh, like plugged her nose. Was like,
she's like, let me out of here.
She's like, ew, they stink. Anyway, so we get in the car. This dog absolutely reeks foul disgustingness, like piss and poo and just the worst smell. And his shedding is like
so bad.
Chunks of fur just flying. I had the windows down because it smelled so bad. I felt sick. Chunks of fur flying in our faces, and the kids were like, ew, whoa, he's so furry. I was like, oh my God. And then I FaceTime Mark like 5 minutes after I get the dog with just this dog panting in the frame next to my face. And I'm like, hi, babe. And he was like, who is that? What is that?
Oh my God.
And I was
what
like,
is that?
So I've done a little thing. And then it was just like, what? And I was like, yeah. So this dog was about to die and I saved it and it was 30 minutes and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I told him the full story and he was on set with all the vegans, by the way.
Oh my God.
And I could hear him telling them, Teresa, like, saved a dog. Teresa, we have a dog. Like, there is a dog and she's FaceTiming me with a dog. Like, and all these people in the background, instead of being like, oh man.
Yeah.
They're like, yes, go Teresa, vegan warrior, woo, for the animals. And so then, thank God he was hit with all this positivity from all these people who thought the story was so sweet.
Because he would have been so mad.
He would have been so pissed. He literally got home and was like, what in the actual fuck? Cut to Mr. loving on the dog, hugging the dog. Yeah. He was the one that said it's a foster fail. I knew I couldn't push it, but now the dog's a foster fail.
Oh my God.
It has been really fun. 2 weeks.
He's so cute.
We had to make him besties with Wiley.
And by the way, they were amazing. We'll show you guys pictures. They were amazing.
Until my dog tried to do Wiley up the ass with his peen. Yeah.
And then he was like, rawr, didn't like it. But then they laid right back down again. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they fell asleep again.
No, I don't like that.
It was like, I don't want, that's exit only. Get out of there.
That is so good.
But now they're cute. Now we're just living our best with all of our kids and our foster dogs.
Okay, so when we had this weekend together, it had been Wyatt's 11th birthday. And on Wyatt's 11th birthday, he had an amazing day. He had 2 friends that loved the water and came to the beach with him, and they surfed and whatever. And they were kind of like playing with they were breaking open these rocks because they saw the inside of this rock and it was so beautiful.
Well,
and they were
what
like,
Eric said, because that was really cool. I like what he said
Eric
about the rock.
was like, oh my gosh, like, I bet you no one has seen the inside of this rock for like thousands of years, you know? And you look at the inside of it and you can see like all the lines and the movement of the water and everything. So they were just like, oh my gosh. So then they were like opening more rocks, and they had definitely had rules in place. Like, you can't throw a rock if anybody's, down there. And like, there was a lot of, structure to it, but we were sort of watching going like, eventually someone's going to get hurt. Right. And so there was just like a moment where Wyatt bent down at the wrong moment and a rock ricocheted and smashed his hand between another rock. And it hurt a lot. And then over the weekend, it was swollen and super bruised on the inside and on the backside. And so he continued to surf all weekend, and he was paddling with his hand turned around backwards.
And catching lobsters, by the way, with his hand.
And catching lobsters and doing all of his ocean stuff. And so then today I took him to the doctor and we got an x-ray, and I looked at him as we were sitting in the room together and I was like, so what do you think? Do you think it's broken? And he was like, yeah, I do. And I was like, I do too. Aww. And I was like, I go, when did you think it was broken? And he was like, I think I thought it was broken more like Sunday. And I was like, yeah. I was like, there was a moment when I saw the black and blue on the inside of your hand. And I was like,
it was so fat when you showed the side by side to his other hand. It was this big fat hand.
Exactly. And I was like,
what a brave
that doesn't look
guy.
Yeah.
Like Bodie was like, that is so badass.
Turns out it was broken. The very middle bone. He was like, my middle finger really hurts. Well, that's because the bone was broken. So
where is it broken? Is it under the knuckle?
So it's broken. Yeah, it's like in the very center of his hand, that very middle bone is broken on one side. So the other side is still together. So they put a cast on him to hold it for 3 weeks, because by that point it'll grow back together and be fine. But like, if he didn't have a cast on, he could break it all the way in two, which you don't. Yeah. If you like fell on it, I was like, he's really active. He's
an active guy.
You know, he's like bicycling, skateboarding, like water polo, surfing, like he, you know.
And can he go in the water with the cast?
He can. It's waterproof. It's like 100% waterproof. So
he can still keep up his surfing.
Yeah. He can still, he just said that the skin underneath the cast might feel a bit weird or uncomfortable.
And
I was like, ooh, maybe don't just like submerge it, you know, like maybe we just try to keep it out, but if it gets a little wet, it's okay. So, anyway, so yes, first broken bone in our
family.
In our children, and he's 11. So that's
done well. You've gone 11.
We've got a good record so far.
11 years. I know. I touch wood, haven't had one yet.
I know.
We've had stitches, but we haven't had.
Us too. I honestly thought Esme would be the first, because she's had a few she's had stitches in her toe. She's had her chin glued back together.
She's so cool, that girl. She's so cool. She's like my spirit animal. And she was wearing this, like, what are those things called around her neck? It was in the 90s.
The choker.
The choker. The black stretchy chokers we used to wear all the time have now come back in. Everyone's wearing them. Yes. And I saw her wearing two, and I was like, oh my God, I remember that. I remember wearing it to school and having to button up my little Catholic school uniform, because you weren't allowed to wear them.
And cool. She got her ears pierced for her birthday. So she got her ears pierced, and she has this little black choker. And she basically spent all day yesterday. She was like boogie boarding the whole day.
And also just like so independent. They're in this really cool little community where like it's kind of like back in the 70s where the kids would just go next door and you wouldn't see the kids till later on, and you know all the families and you're like, do you have them? Yeah. Are they having lunch at your house? Yeah. Right. It was so cool. We actually
had that experience yesterday where Esme, like, I was standing on the porch and she popped out of someone's house and she goes, hey Mom, I had lunch. I'll see you later. And I was like, with who? And she was like, over here at this house. And I was like, okay. She's like, I'm going back. We're doing a bake sale at the park. I'll see you later. And it's like the park is in the community, so it's like very safe.
It's all like a gated community.
Yeah,
and
it's everyone like knows all the people that we know. So so she was like, I'm going back. I'm doing a bake sale. I was like, okay, will you meet us at the beach?
And she did. She came down.
And she did.
And then she was like, oh, I forgot you guys were even here to like
I know, I felt so bad.
Boris and Bodie and all that. No, it was great. She was off living her life. And I was I was like, ugh, the cutest. Like, but also in my heart, I was like, but they're getting so big that they can do these things and they're getting so big and they're independent.
Sandy, salty little Esme, like running around the whole day. It's so crazy.
She's such a G. She really is so cool.
Okay. You guys, well, I think that was really fun. Thank you. Send us all of your parenting tips, everything that you guys do or think like, you know, you would have any tips for us. We'd really appreciate it.
I know.
And we love you, Daisy.
We really love you guys.
I know. It's so really fun. We love hearing from you. Like when you send us messages and stuff, it's like so great. It makes us so happy.
Yeah.
So
slip into the DMs, peeps.
Slip into the DMs. We love it.
Cool
all right, guys, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Bye, Daisy.
Bye, Daisies.